They're just saying that we are totally dependent for our survival upon the goodwill, that would be a disadvantage, and we know that, people are mean to kids, parents, some parents are not very good and they're very bad, and they beat up little kids. There's child abuse, and Lloyd DeMoss would say that that's really been our species, is beating up our kids. And then it's only this book is called The History of something like History of Childhood. He has article at least History of Childhood as the History of Child Abuse. In other words, they're equivalent, and they're saying that basically we abused our children from the dawn of our species, whatever you want to call it, and that we've only recently come out of this cycle of getting gradually to where we can be sociable with our children, which would be, if that's the truth, then if we're doing it better now, and we can't really say we are. We have no way of comparing. I mean, he may be wrong. Jesus, even if he's right, it means that, we've been bastards. Our human species has been bastards even to its own, terrorizing and creating hell. I mean, if that's the case, and if we now think we're enlightened or something, how enlightened are we, really? I mean, a lot of psychologists would say we're not very enlightened. We still have to struggle with whether parents can spank their kids, and if you should, be hitting your kid. What I'm saying is, if we have a relatively enlightened period recently, and only very recently, we're talking, argue with me, you can make it 200 years, maybe 100, 150, I don't know. But out of all the years of our existence, well, Lloyd DeMoss is right. If he's wrong, well, the fact is that cultures have been mostly hard on each other, from what I've studied. I mean, it seems that there's a search for the perfect culture that raises their children happy. Well, Margaret Mead thought she found some tribes, and then that was in dispute, and so we hope that it's possible, but we don't know how many people have really lived that experience. So that would really make us the bastards of the planet, really. The real motherfuckers of the planet. And it's no wonder if we're that damn badass, where we have one responsibility, which we call our greatest achievement, which is related to our language and everything. And we got this big one responsibility to care for our children and socialize them. And then we screw up in the massive scales that we're talking about. I mean, we do have this myth that, in the past that children were brought up wonderful and everything, but that's really not our history, I mean, you read some of the Greek stuff and they're talking about using little boys and girls and little children for sex toys and things. So I won't say anything more. And these were famous people, and it wasn't considered anything weird. It was considered they were famous people, so that's why they got written about. But it was written about as if that was the way it was, not that was a bad thing at all. So that's just something that comes to my mind. But that's pretty creepy. Boy, we have this idea that we're this wondrous race, we've gone to the moon, we made all these achievements for who? Did we help anybody? If there's a way of looking at this where this really makes sense. Did we help anybody? Who the fuck did we help? I'm sorry, but we're wiping out. We're causing species to go extinct. Who the fuck were we? Were we such a great human race? We don't get along with each other. We don't even get along with each other. For God's sakes. Holy Christ. I mean, now I'm thinking about how, when I look back at our history, I think, forget about the childbearing and look at the societies that they produce. I mean, don't we all feel that we just made it out of a little, don't we feel like we just barely made it out of a long period of where you wouldn't have wanted to be alive in that time? I'm sorry, I didn't mean the George Bush era. That's 8 years. I mean, I know it seemed like a long time, and we didn't think we'd make it out of there. But I'm saying that no, don't we have this feeling that like, oh, isn't it great to be born at this decade, in this decade, in this decade? Anybody alive would say it's great to be born in this decade. Well, people could they could speculate that maybe that's the way everybody feels at the time that they're born is the best time to be alive. It's the greatest pinnacle of civilization or whatever. But if you look back in history books, they didn't even think about their lives that way. That's not what they said. No. I mean, poverty and so on was poverty and tyranny. Of course, you got other cultures too, but even then, there was wars amongst the Indians and stuff, and they were certainly a lot more pacific than us. But yeah, we've always managed to have war, and there's only very, very scant evidence that any other species even does that, even murders in groups or anything like that, their own kind. And it just, it was always like one of those things, only, we're the human savage, It was always like, we were the ones that killed. But there was something about some observations of some chimp group, basically having a kind of war with other chimp group or something like that. But that's the first that we've heard of it. So, and even if that's true, that's the only kind of evidence there is for anything, any species out of the millions, that does what we do. Wow. Well, I sure feel like the pinnacle of creation today.